Today, we're diving deep into one of America's most chilling historical events, the Salem Witch Trials of 1692. A story of fear, superstition, and tragedy that still fascinates us today. But what really happened in Salem? Were witches truly behind the horrors, or was it something more human and far more complex? Let's uncover the truth behind the hysteria, the people involved, and the lasting impact of this dark episode in history. To understand Salem in 1692, we have to go back to the roots of the community. Salem was a Puritan settlement in colonial Massachusetts, founded by people seeking religious freedom, but it was a strict, deeply religious society with little tolerance for dissent. The Puritans believed that the devil was an active force in the world, constantly trying to corrupt their souls. This belief shaped every aspect of their lives. Daily life was harsh. Winters were cold and unforgiving. Crops often failed, and threats from Native American tribes were a constant worry. Socially, Salem was tense. The community was divided into factions, with some families wealthier and more influential than others. The town's population was growing quickly, which led to disputes over land and resources. Everyone knew each other's business, rumors, and grudges simmered beneath the surface. Religion wasn't just a part of life, it was law. The Puritan Church governed every moral decision and behavior. Anything that seemed even slightly other or suspicious could be labeled as witchcraft, a direct threat to their godly order. In fact, the fear of witches was fueled by earlier European witch hunts. The Salem colonists brought those beliefs with them, and some had experienced traumatic events back in England or Europe that made the fear of witchcraft feel very real. The legal framework of the time allowed for witchcraft accusations to be tried as crimes, and the courts were ready to convict based on what today would be considered shaky evidence. In January 1692, strange things started happening in the home of Reverend Samuel Parris. His daughter, Betty Parris, and niece, Abigail Williams, began behaving erratically. They would have fits, scream, and contort their bodies in unnatural ways. Doctors at the time were baffled, unable to find a physical cause. Many suspected witchcraft, a diagnosis rooted more in fear than science. The girls eventually accused 3 women: Tituba, a Caribbean slave in the household; Sarah Good, a homeless woman; and Sarah Osborne, an elderly woman who rarely attended church. These women were all vulnerable members of the community, making them easy targets. What started as 3 accusations quickly snowballed. Over the next few months, dozens of Salem residents were accused of witchcraft. The accusations often came from other girls and young women who displayed similar fits or claimed to see specters of the accused harming them. The townspeople were gripped by fear. Neighbors turned on neighbors. Long-standing grudges and rivalries came to the surface as people used accusations to settle scores or gain advantage. The accused were often socially marginalized, poor, outspoken, or otherwise vulnerable. Yet even prominent citizens were not immune from suspicion as the panic spread. The legal proceedings in Salem were unlike any we expect today. Courts allowed spectral evidence testimony that the spirit or specter of the accused had harmed someone, even if the accused person was elsewhere at the time. Many accused confessed, some under pressure, fear, or torture, hoping for mercy. Others maintained their innocence but were still found guilty. By the time the trials ended, more than 150 people had been accused. 19 were executed by hanging, and at least 5 died in jail. Among those executed was Giles Corey, who refused to enter a plea and was pressed to death under heavy stones. Historians have long debated why the Salem witch trials happened. It's clear the causes were not simple. Social tensions played a huge role. Disputes over land, power struggles within the town, and economic inequalities contributed to a charged atmosphere. Some researchers suggest psychological explanations, such as mass hysteria or collective anxiety, especially in a community already living under stress. Others have proposed that ergot poisoning from a fungus that grows on rye grain may have caused hallucinations and strange behaviors in the afflicted girls. Religious fervor and a rigid, authoritarian society set the stage for these fears to explode into tragedy. The trials finally ended in 1693, when the colonial government disbanded the special court. Later, the colony admitted the trials were a mistake and compensated the families of the victims. Salem's dark chapter became a powerful cautionary tale about the dangers of extremism, scapegoating, and the breakdown of justice under fear. Today, Salem is remembered not just for witches, but for the importance of critical thinking, fair legal process, and the risks of allowing fear to control a society. The Salem Witch Trials weren't just about witches, they were about people, their fears, their flaws, and the fragile nature of justice in a time of uncertainty. By studying these events, we remind ourselves to question mass hysteria and protect the rights of the vulnerable. Beyond the trials themselves, the aftermath deeply affected the community. Families of the accused faced social ostracism, economic hardship, and emotional trauma. The government issued formal apologies decades later, and monuments now stand in Salem to honor the victims and remind us of the cost of fear-driven injustice. Salem today embraces this history, transforming from a site of tragedy to one of reflection and education. It's also important to understand the role of key individuals. Reverend Samuel Parris, whose household was at the center of the initial accusations, had enemies and detractors in the town, which may have influenced the spread of the hysteria. The girls who first claimed possession and spectral attacks, while often portrayed as victims, may also have had complex motives ranging from seeking attention to navigating difficult social pressures. The Salem Witch Trials have inspired countless works of literature, film, and art. Most famously, Arthur Miller's play, The Crucible, which uses the trials as an allegory for the anti-communist witch hunts of the 1950s. This cultural legacy highlights how Salem remains relevant as a symbol of the dangers of paranoia and scapegoating in any era. Moreover, modern science and scholarship have continued to analyze the trials from various angles. For example, some historians argue the political instability in the Massachusetts Bay Colony, including disputes with the Crown and internal governance struggles, created a climate ripe for panic. Others explore the gender dynamics at play, noting that most accused were women, reflecting broader societal fears about female power and autonomy. In conclusion, the Salem Witch Trials were not simply about witches or superstition. They were a tragic intersection of fear, religion, social tension, and human frailty. The lessons from Salem remind us to remain vigilant against hysteria, to uphold justice even in turbulent times, and to remember the humanity of those caught in the crossfire of fear. Thanks for watching. If you want more deep dives into history's mysteries, hit subscribe and leave a comment with what you want to explore next.